When you put it in your CD player, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so you're having a few friends over and you want to make something to impress them. Or maybe you want to make dinner a little bit better but don't want to waste too many dishes. Well, here's a fairly easy Korean marinade skirt stick that is sure to please your crowd or fill your stomach on a weeknight.
This recipe is actually pretty easy. It just takes a bit of time because of the marination and a lot of chopping of the ingredients. First, we gotta chop up some garlic and ginger. These aromatics are essential to get great flavor for the marinade. You could probably get away with dried garlic and ginger. I'd say avoid the powdered stuff, it's just not gonna lend itself to this. But if you have like the big dried chunks, that should work fine. Also, in case you're wondering, you don't need nice knives like me. These are pretty expensive because I like cooking, so I bought some really nice knives. But you can get away with just a sharp knife that is like super cheap. Like this knife is maybe $2, the one I'm showing you right now, and it still cuts great. You just need to get it sharp. A pull-through sharpener would work fine for a knife like this, but for a more expensive knife like the ones that I have, I like to use whetstones just because it does more, like it's finer than a pull-through sharpener. I put this in the food processor for a finer texture. You could skip this if you don't care. I just felt like it was easier because I suck at mincing and it takes a lot of effort for me and I don't want to put in that effort. Now you gotta add all of this to the bowl and start getting all the other flavorings for this marinade. Soy sauce is a must-have. A lot of soy sauce in the bowl. That's maybe a cup. If you haven't noticed, I don't really measure my ingredients. I just think it gets dishes dirty, and I'm not looking for consistency. I just want things to taste good. You should really just do stuff based on how it tastes. Sesame oil is next. I love this stuff. It just oozes flavor out the wazoo. Gochujang, staple of mine. Kinda love this stuff, you know. Rice vinegar adds a little bit of acidity. You could skip it if you just want extra and just add extra mirin, but I like the acidity. It adds a little kick to the marinade. There's a lot more traditional stuff I left out, like Asian pear and other stuff, but that's for you to add if you want. Add some brown sugar, that'd be good. I kind of wish I added it. I was going to, but then I completely forgot. But I think brown sugar would work really well in this marinade.
Now, sometimes you will notice I'm closing my eyes. When you close your eyes, you can hear much better. You can also hear your thoughts better. You can hear what's in your mind better when you close your eyes.
Alright, now for the meat. Traditionally, you would use sling-cut short rib. This is generally called kalbi. It's pretty good, but I really like skirt steak for this. I got this skirt steak from Klein's Custom Meats. They're a local butcher here in Jax that have great meat. They have dry-aged stuff that's super nice. They even have wagyu if you're really looking to spend a lot of money. They actually have pre-marinated kalbi that's pretty good and also pretty cheap, probably like $5 a piece. Like, you could probably get like 3 or 4 of those and feed a whole group of people with it, and like it would taste pretty good. But I like the skirt steak. It's so good. It's super tender, and it just has this great, strong beef flavor. You're going to want to cut these into smaller pieces so that they actually fit in your pan. If you're like me and you don't have a huge pan like a restaurant, then you need to cut them down to pieces that will actually be able to fit in your pan easily, and like you don't have to do a bunch of maneuvering in order to get it to fit. You can see the skirt steak has very long meat fibers. Basically what this means is that the muscles are very long and very parallel with each other, and this means it has a lot of surface area that can pick up a lot of marinade, and it makes it really good for marination, which is why I'm using it in this recipe. I like to just throw this in a plastic bag. It just means you need less marinade, and it lets you store it in a lot of different configurations because you can move the plastic bag in any direction you need to. So that's how I like to do it. Throw in the marinade and let this marinate overnight. You could also do this in the morning, and it would lead to less, the steak would be a little bit less tender. If you're looking for that, that's fine though.
With such a pain to be alone and lonely.
It's the next day, and first I want to get all my prep out of the way. First, I'm doing a scallion salad. This might sound weird, but trust me, this is amazing. I like to get this in a thin little matchstick shape, so you can see I cut it in half, and then I cut it very thin into like long strips. So you could probably skip this, it takes a while. You could just chop them very diagonally, it'd give you a similar effect. Once done, put them into a bowl of ice water and save them until you're serving. The ice water helps them curl up and look more like just look better. You also want to keep it away from the dressing until you're ready to serve, because the longer you keep it in the bowl, the more likely the scallions will start to go soggy. I don't know why it doesn't go soggy in the water, probably some science reasons, but that you want to keep it out of the dressing. Speaking of dressing, let's make that real quick. More soy sauce, of course. Sesame oil, mirin, gochujang, and rice vinegar. Basically just a smaller, fresher marinade. It gives it more of a fresh taste as compared to the marinade, which has been sitting in the fridge for a while and getting a little bit more deep in umami. I'd use more sesame oil for the dressing than for the marinade, as well as more rice vinegar. It just makes it more like a salad dressing with the oil and vinegar than it does with the marinade. After this, chop some green peppers. This is gonna go in the pan after the steak along with the leftover marinade to get some nice green and vegetable flavor in there. You could use some nice leafy greens like chard or spinach or something like that. That would taste really good here. Honestly, I kind of wish I did. Peppers didn't work as well as I thought they would. Also, make sure to chop up the greens of the scallions, so this will make an excellent topping. Next, rice. I'm making about 3 cups of rice for 5 people. If you want more, just make more. Or if you want less, just make less. It's your recipe after all. Just making jasmine, very simple rice. You know, I like to wash the rice before so the grains separate more when they cook. Skip this if you don't really care about that though. Now it's time to cook the steak. Before getting started, put your oven at the lowest temp it'll go. I did about 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Then line a baking sheet with aluminum foil. This just makes it easier to clean up afterwards. If you're making this for yourself or maybe just a few other people and you can only have 1 or 2 rotations of the steak at most, you can skip these steps. This is just if you have a lot of steaks that you need to make to keep hot and make as you make the other steaks. To be honest, I need to get a bigger pan. Speaking of pans, here's what I'm using. Nice heavy cast iron. You can use any steel pan. If you use non-stick at the heat that you need to cook steak, it can be dangerous, especially because of how long it takes to make. Generally, if you're going for a pretty short amount of time, it is okay to use, but like if you're going for a very long time, like steaks take 10-12 minutes each to make, then you need to be careful with how much you use non-stick, and in this case, cast iron is better. Oil in the pan, I take this a little over medium, which is like a medium high on a gas stove if you have that. The hotter you make it, the quicker the crust of the steak will be done. This is going to depend on A, how rare you want your steak, and B, how much crust you want in your steak. If you like a little bit of charring with medium rare, turn up the heat. Want a more medium steak, then turn the temp down. It's going to depend on how you like your steak. Cook all of the steaks. When a steak gets done, put it on the pan. Not all the steaks are going to be done at the same time. The way that I like to tell is you can poke it, and if it starts to bounce back at you a little bit, that's probably about the time when it's medium rare, if that's what you're going for. Again, it's going to depend on what you want. A lot of pig juice will start flowing to the top, and that's also a very good indicator of how well the steak is almost done. If you're making as many steaks as I did, you're going to want to clean your pan out afterwards. If you can, try to cook all of your steaks at once. It'll mean you can use the fond at the bottom of a pan with the marinade and the peppers to add a stronger beef taste. I really wish I was able to do that. It is genuinely a great way to make this work. Unfortunately, due to the amount of steaks that I had to wash my pan because the fond was burned. It would just make the peppers and the sauce taste really bad. Reheat the pan and throw in your peppers, and after they start to soften, throw them in the remaining marinade and cook that for maybe another 2 minutes and then take it off the heat. You're going to want to take the peppers off before they're done because they're going to soften a lot as you let them sit and get ready before you eat. Now time to finish this all up. First, cutting the meat. You have to cut the meat against the grain, as they say. What does this mean? You remember those meat fibers I talked about earlier, those long parallel lines? Basically, you have to cut perpendicular to those so that it makes them really short. This is basically like pre-chewing the meat, you could say, and it makes it really tender because those meat fibers don't really have a lot of connective tissue to keep themselves together. If you didn't do this, the meat would be impossibly chewy. I usually like to cut my steaks in half depending on the size. Rice goes on the plate first, just regular plain Jane rice. There's no special seasoning. We're gonna add that in a second. Then add some of that scallion salad and add a little bit of that dressing to the rice to make it taste better. Add some peppers and add the marinade sauce to the rice also. And finally some steak and green onions. You could plate this up a lot fancier or just not plate it up at all. I don't really care. But whatever you do with it, just know it'll taste really good.